other day, I was talking with a couple of friends of mine, and I was like, how is it living in Baltimore County? I used to live out in Randallstown back in the day. Has it changed any? And they were like, yeah, we like it out here, but we like living in the city. But I was like, you know what? I want to maybe go back to the county and live out there. I mean, I was a county boy growing up. So I said, well, who better to get the Baltimore County executive here? And let's talk about Baltimore County. The next voice you'll hear is the county executive of Baltimore County.
The NoPixAfterDark Podcast is fueled by Zeke's Coffee. Have you tried their coffee yet? I'm telling you, there's something different about it. Maybe it's because they roast their beans in a fluid coffee roaster, which provides the most accurate roasting temperatures and made with love. You would just have to check it out for yourself and try their delicious food while you're at it. Open now for curbside service, online ordering, carry out, and they also do wholesale. Visit Zeke's Coffee at 4719 Hartford Road. Open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Sunday, 8 to 5 p.m. Kitchen closes at 3 p.m. or visit Zeke'sCoffee.com and you too can be fueled by Zeke's. The NoPixAfterDark Podcast is proudly partnered with Maggie's Farm, located at 4341 Hartford Road. Maggie's Farm offers a unique dining experience with delicious handcrafted cocktails and mouth-watering cuisine, from falafels to scallops and everyone's favorites, honey sriracha cauliflower wings. Open for dinner from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m., Tuesday through Saturday, and for brunch, Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. with delectable chicken and waffles, shrimp and grits, biscuits and gravy, and more. Check out Maggie's Farm on Instagram and Facebook for daily and weekly food specials.
Welcome to the No Picks After Dark Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Dante. Today we have an amazing show for you. I'm so excited to have the Baltimore County Executive, John Olszewski. So pumped to have him here. What's going on?
Aaron, thanks so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you here, man.
Gotta get those friends back out to Randallstown and the rest of Baltimore County.
I grew up in over by Milford Mill Swim Club, off Washington Avenue, and that's where I grew up when I was younger. And then we moved away. But I remember those days of living in Baltimore County, and it was like, "Oh, you live in the county? You're a county kid, But now I live in the city. But I'm happy to bring you in here.
Yeah.
And let's talk about what's going on in Baltimore County, what exciting things are happening, and it's election year, so gotta bring you on.
Gotta talk.
And it's a pleasure to have you on. Shout out to Miss Abby, who made it happen for us. She really came through. I've been working with her, trying to get with her since December. Actually, yeah, December to get you on the show.
Well, Abby's the one who makes the magic happen.
She made it happen. So shout out to Miss Abby out there. Shout out to her. So we're here live and direct. Tell people a little bit about you. Let's because I like to get learn about a little bit about you before we get into the nitty gritty. You're originally from where in Baltimore County?
So I was born and bred in eastern Baltimore County, in the Dundalk, Sparrows Point communities, and so a Baltimore boy through and through. Believe in this region, and we can talk about that later too. But grew up on the east side of the county, and I sort of remind folks that the sort of fondest memory I have growing up is this the blast furnace at the Sparrows Point steel mill, the Bethlehem steel mill, and what that meant for jobs and opportunities, and people were able to pursue their version of the American dream, not just in eastern Baltimore County, but for the entire region. And I was lucky enough to be the first in my family to go to college. I was a public school kid. I played rec sports growing up, and as I was having opportunities after opportunity handed to me, I saw a neighborhood in decline as that strong industrial legacy faded away. So as that was happening, I went through public school, was the first in my family to go to college, undergrad at Goucher, master's at George Washington, a PhD with Dr. Hrabowski over at UMBC, all exceptional experiences. I moved back home because I wanted to be part of reshaping that transformation. And so I came back home knowing that education was what transformed my life and gave me all the opportunities, and became a public school teacher in eastern Baltimore County in the county school system. And then shortly thereafter, actually ran for the House of Delegates and said, I want to take all this work that I'm doing in the classroom with these kids and those connections and that transformation to scale. and fight so that all kids had a teacher who was invested in them, and that all kids had a classroom that affirmed their dignity and worth. And so between that and the environmental legacies and living on the Bay, wanting to affirm that, and the economic and workforce redevelopment of Sparrows Point, I ran for office, was lucky enough to serve for 8 years in the Maryland House. Took a tough loss a few years later, the Maryland Senate, and then was lucky enough to be elected county executive, wrapping up my first term. I have a smart, amazing, talented wife, Marissa. She works for the Maryland League of Conservation Voters. My daughter is a curious, funny 6-year-old going on 16, and we have a 16-year-old Chow Border Collie dog who has the energy of a puppy. We currently live on the east side still, over in Miller's Island, and I'm a sports lover. I'm an outdoors lover, and I love politics because of the way it can make a difference in people's lives.
So, I mean, I know you might have mentioned this earlier, but what childhood memory sticks out to you the most? What, like, if you can sit back and you can smile and tell that story over and over again to family, friends, even your own kids.
Yeah.
Which childhood memory sticks out? Because for me, it was going to Memorial Stadium and seeing Eddie Murray. And it was everybody, Eddie. That was just a scene to behold at Memorial Stadium. I remember getting peanuts down at, Lexington Market. I'd get the peanut guy, and I would come out with my dad, and we would park next to the Cloverland, and then we'd walk up to the stadium. What about you?
That's awesome. Well, my stadium experience was at the old Memorial Stadium when the Dolphins and the Saints played the exhibition game when we were trying to get the franchise expansion in Baltimore. My dad took me. That was magical, sort of father-son bonding experience. But the experience and the memory that we talk about most as a family, and this gets to the power of a strong teacher in your life, and it was Miss Ruth Long. It was 5th grade, and she said, I'm going to have these kids put on a play. And we had this play. It was called Surfing Santa, and I was cast as Santa. And the premise of this play, it's amazing you remember it all these years later, is that Santa was tired, and he wanted to go on a vacation. And so against the advice of Mrs. Claus and the elves and everybody else, he hightails it to a tropical beach, and everything goes awry as a result of him leaving. But, I still know some of the songs, and my parents will pull out some of the pictures, but it really it bonded us in a way to our teacher and to each other. And for me and for my many peers, it sort of just further affirmed that, like, we can take on these hard challenges together and achieve it. And it was really great. It was a special experience growing up.
Thank you for sharing that with the audience. Really appreciate that. I realize.
I don't know if I've ever told that story before.
Hey,
so
we got an exclusive here. Exclusive, folks. Exclusive. So, were you ever in Model Unit Nations, girl, like in high school? Was there something like politics? Was that in your blood? Because I remember I tried Model UN, and I was like, this is tough. Like, you gotta know your history facts. You didn't know everything about everything. Were you a part of that, the debate team? Because I always wonder, like, when people get in politics, they've already had that. They were built already for that. What about yourself?
So I would say that politics is literally in my blood. I grew up in a political family. My father wasn't political growing up himself, but through being a coach on our Little League rec teams and being involved in the local Democratic Club, he came to understand how important local politics were and state politics. And so he went from a guy who had no interaction whatsoever to running. He was actually a county councilman for 16 years in Baltimore County. And I got to see up close and personal how that worked well, and in some cases how there were opportunities to even do it better and serve residents. And so I thank him for instilling in me and my 2 younger brothers a love for public service. So I ended up running for office and becoming a teacher. My middle brother works in code enforcement for the county, and my youngest brother is a police officer in Baltimore County. And they were all working for the county before I was elected, before anyone cast any aspersions. But public service runs through our veins. I had a chance coming up and going through to sort of. I think I was naturally gravitated to that before my father ran. I was 16 when he first ran for the council, so I was heavily involved in student government through middle school and high school into college. I served as the student member on the Board of Education for Baltimore County. And between that and seeing him on the campaign trail and knocking doors with him and then seeing him serve, it's one of those things where I think, it either goes to one extreme or the other. you either see it and you love it and it's for you, or for my two other brothers, they're like, no, sir, I don't want anything to do with that politics stuff. Now they're helpful and they're supportive when he ran and when I ran, but they have no aspirations. But it's one of those things that it really is transformative. And just today to see the young people at Scotch Branch Elementary School, when we told them this morning that they're getting a new school, it literally brought some tears to the eyes in the room, and I choked up myself. And it's just like, because you can look at those young people and say, you're worthy of this, and I'm going to help deliver that for you. It's a special feeling.
Wow. And being a teacher, you were a teacher for how many years were you teaching for?
I was in the system for 7 years, 5 years as a social studies and special ed teacher, and then 2 years as a resource teacher serving the entire county.
What do you miss about being a teacher? Like, what is? I mean, I know people, because I had a Codetta Bakery on, and she, Mira, she said she misses the kids. What about you? What do you miss about teaching?
Oh, it's the kids, and I had a very special bond with the people with whom I taught at Patapsco High School. Those were special people who cared about their kids. I miss not only the day-to-day interactions with the kids and just how they're smart and witty and brought their hopes and their fears and their aspirations to the classroom, but several years later, seeing how a teacher made a difference in a kid's life. So there was I had a student come up to me maybe 2 years ago at a restaurant, and he wanted to buy me a beer. And I was like, you don't have to do that, but sure. And he just said, Mr. O, I wasn't the best kid. I was a little difficult for you, but you always checked in on me. You always pushed me. You always encouraged me. And I just want you to know how much that meant to me. And he said, I wasn't sure where my life was going to go, but, you and others really helped, and I want you to know that I'm married now. I have a kid on the way, and I joined a union, and I'm making really good money, and I'm taking care of myself, and I'm proud of the work that I'm doing, and I just want to thank you for what you did for me. That's what you miss, and I didn't even realize it because I had planted the seed, and I hadn't even see it. You have to give that time to grow sometimes, and I was already out of the classroom at that point. But those are the special connections that. If you're a teacher, you get it. And that's what keeps people in the classroom for 30 years.
Folks, on that note, we'll be right back after these messages.
Openworks is Baltimore's largest makerspace, offering access to tools ranging from 3D printers to welder, and training in how to use them. Openworks also offers affordable studio space, a coffee shop, and fun-free events throughout the year. But Openworks is more than a public workshop. It's a community of creative professionals, students, seniors, entrepreneurs, and makers of all kinds. Check out the website at www.openworksbmore.org or Instagram at open_works_bmore for class schedules, membership options, and more.
And folks, we are back with Baltimore County Executive John Olszewski. Thank you so much for coming to Baltimore City.
Absolutely. I love Baltimore City.
Hey, we got you here, man.
I was just down the street at Coco's the other day having crab cakes with the mayor.
I saw that. I
had to pay my debt. I lost the bet when Dundalk lost to
football, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Coco's. I know you can't say, but it's my favorite spot. And everywhere.
I always put it in the recommendations whenever someone asks to go, but I always have to put Pappas in there and Costas, and we've got some great Baltimore County restaurants too.
We'll get into that a little bit. We'll get into a little bit of that later on. So tell me, why did you decide to run for Baltimore County Executive? Why did you want to do that? You have been successful in every place you've gone. You want the big gig. Why did you want that? Why did you want the big show, I call it?
The big show is the biggest platform to drive change. And For me, it was shortly after I became a father. So I mentioned I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and I just sort of started seeing the world through her eyes and started asking the question of what kind of a community and county and region is she growing up in? And while Baltimore County is a very good county and I love it, I realized that we just weren't realizing our fullest potential. And so I sort of started by listening, and I spent a couple years doing this organization called Better Baltimore County, where that was the premise, is that this is a good county, but we can and should aspire to be better. And I spent years just talking to civic leaders and chambers of commerce and nonprofits and going to fairs and festivals and telling other people's stories and listening to their stories, just like you do, right? And it really solidified in me that I thought that there was an opportunity and a need, and that I was the right person to fill that need. And we made some pretty big promises about what we sought to do. And I have to say, if you look back on the record, these past 3.5 years, we've delivered. And we've done that. We've done that even in the middle of a pandemic.
Let's go into them. Let's go into what are some of the big things that you've accomplished.
Baltimore County is more open, accessible, and transparent than ever before.
Okay.
We now, the 2 years prior to my election, there were 2 people who testified on the county's $4+ billion budget in the 2 years prior. Since taking office, we've started a town hall series where hundreds of people attend, dozens of people testify in all 7 council districts. We have put transparency and accountability at the top of the list. We have the county's first ever inspector general. We have this budget program where you can go look down to the check how our dollars are being spent. We've created an Office of Community Engagement where all 7 council districts have a dedicated liaison to work with them. We created BC Stat, which is a data-driven team that measures our progress and posts that information. We've passed legislation on everything from police reform. We were the first jurisdiction in the region to pass police reform in the wake of George Floyd's murder. We passed gun reform legislation to require that gun shops have sensible protections to secure their weapons. We've passed legislation to ban discrimination on source of income. We passed legislation to allow live music in Baltimore County. We've invested tremendously in schools, both on the operating side and the capital side. We talked about school on the first half, but just record funding every year for our teachers, for our support personnel, teachers, counselors, pupil personnel workers. Just this year alone, our budget is about $40 million above what's mandated by the state in terms of maintenance of effort. And that's just on the operating side. On top of that, we've put forward hundreds of millions of dollars so that every single school in Baltimore County is air conditioned now. We've put forward a multi-billion-dollar plan over the next 15 years to ensure that there are no more trailers in Baltimore County within the decade, that we're investing in CTE, and that every single school has significant investment over those 15 years. So we're rooted in equity. We're thinking about things like sustainability. We're rooting sustainability and equity and diversity in all of our decision making. I'm so proud. We could spend an hour talking about all of our accomplishments, but really, if there's one takeaway, I hope it's that people feel like they actually have a voice in their government again. And so whether it's we respond to every email that comes in, or we are engaging in real time with individuals at these town halls, I'm just really proud of how we've transformed and turned county government from outside in to inside out. And it's all about inviting the communities into the dialogue, into the conversation. And it's made a big difference.
What did you learn about yourself during the whole COVID process? I mean, everybody is like COVID happened, and it was a pivot, like every which way.
Yeah.
I mean, the way just part of life, just in general. Like, I mean, what are your thoughts on COVID? Just
it really stretched me as a leader, as a person. Some of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make in my life, because you're weighing health and safety, and in the early days, I was actually calling every single family that lost a loved one to COVID. The losses then became so overwhelming that it was impossible to keep up with. And then you measure that against the businesses who are like, how am I going to provide for my employees and my families? You measure that against the public health impact. But I learned that, like, we have a strong, resilient team, and everyone from rec and parks to the health department to the fire department. I mean, everyone, it was all hands on deck, and people wanted to serve. And I think that's why we have been one of the most vaccinated counties in the state and one of the most vaccinated states in the country. I think it's why we've been so successful pushing out those grants to businesses and individuals. But this pandemic has laid bare a lot of the inequities that have been there for a long time. And so as we think about recovery or getting back on track, for me, it's like we can't just get back to business as usual, right? We have to aspire to where we should have always been, not to where we were before. And I think that's an imperative for all leaders. If we didn't learn that lesson from this pandemic, then shame on us. And so as we think about recovery, whether it's the American Recovery Funding coming from Congress or our local dollars, being intentional about an equitable recovery so that everyone has the opportunity to thrive in the years ahead.
I brought that up because I wanted to give you kudos, and as young people say, your flowers, props, and because I remember my parents live in Baltimore County, and they were like, "Hey, you might want to sneak out here because they just opened up the Sears or something else like at White Marsh, and they have testing center over here, testing center over here, and you had testing centers everywhere, and that was so important." And I remember seeing that like, wow, they're on top of it. They're on top of their game. They're making sure things are getting done. People are getting tested because we really didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on. I remember that day when the world pretty much stopped and literally 2 years living at home, working from home. And I remember you guys were doing it right. Even with the school kids, everybody had a computer. Kids working from school. Think about kids working from school home. Nobody ever in a million years would thought that would ever happen. And Baltimore County was prepared for that. And I just want to give you kudos for you guys.
Thank you.
Making sure things were done correctly in the right way. And, we all had our hiccups and trips, but I remember just watching what you guys were doing. And it's kind of like Baltimore City was kind of mirroring what you guys were doing. Kind of just, we're going back and forth. Because we're basically brother, sister, right?
And that's just it, right? And that's, a testament to Dr. Branch and the amazing team, the health teams that we had to stand up those systems. But as Dr. Branch would tell you, like, come on in, right? Like, I don't care if you're from Baltimore City, Harford County, Anne Arundel County. We want to get people vaccinated. And so we knew that was the best way forward to get beyond this. And so whether it was testing or vaccinations, we didn't check a passport to come across. And we just wanted to serve people. And that's what public service is all about, is how do we actually get through this? And we got through it so far together. And I think that is the same mentality we have to have sort of advancing into recovery, right? We have to come through this together and recognize that at the end of the day, we all want good schools for our kids. We all want safe streets. We all want a clean environment. And so we're the pandemic proved we can get through that together. We can make those things happen together.
So what's the common misconception people think of what the county executive does? Because I know a lot of people think they can just call.
Yeah.
Hey, they didn't pick up the trash today, or something happened, or like something like. What's the misconception that a lot of people might have? You think that they think you might do? Or
so we want people to call if trash isn't picked up. Okay. So we want people to know they can call us about that, and we will do something about that. Hopefully that's infrequent. But what's interesting is one of the most common misconceptions is that people think that as county executive, I have day-to-day control over the operations of the school system.
Okay, here we go.
So we talked about the fact that we've provided record funding to hire staff and build schools, but at the end of the day, the school board is an extension. The local school board, the Baltimore County School Board, is an extension of the Maryland School Board. And our local superintendent reports up to the state superintendent. So these are all. This is a state approved local board, and that board appoints and oversees the superintendent and his administration. And collectively, the board and the superintendent have effectively pretty much all day-to-day operational control. So things like curriculum, things like discipline, those are all decisions that the Board of Education, in collaboration and consultation and partnership with the superintendent, is making. And so a lot of times, including during the pandemic, I would give my opinion, but at the end of the day, this is a partnership with our school system too. And whether it was when to reopen or to require masks, for whom, for how long, those are all decisions that the school system makes. And so I actually supported legislation when I was in the House to allow for elected school boards so that people had more direct, input as to who was representing them on the school board. But ultimately, we provide over 50% of our budget. It's over $2 billion every year to support education in Baltimore County. But in terms of day-to-day operations, that's actually not something we do.
So you don't appoint anybody from the school board at all? Wow, okay.
Nope.
It's good enough. Did not know that.
Which is, and that's interesting because it does vary by county. Some counties are all appointed, and they're appointed either by the, in our county, we have 4 appointees in addition to the 7 elected, and they're all by the governor. Other counties, Prince George's County used to have the county executive would appoint the school board members. Other counties are all elected. Other counties are all appointed. So it's really interesting when you try to piece it all together, and, but it's important.
It gets confusing for people like myself. There's so many different things going on out there. So what challenges did you face in the first term, that things that you were like, this is wow, we're in some rough shapes, or wow, this is a little bit harder to get through, or figuring out what challenge would you say?
So we talked about 2 of them. Okay. One being COVID.
Right.
Hopefully the greatest public health crisis of our lifetimes, because I don't want to live through a more difficult health crisis. But it's my hope that we're moving towards a more endemic stage as vaccines are up and most people have, had an infection. I've been sort of vax boosted and
you got it.
And I got it. So
I remember that.
Bring it on, right? I guess. I don't know. No, but I hope that that's moving behind us and we're thinking about recovery. I would say that the school construction piece has been a lot more challenging than anticipated because we're talking big dollars. We're talking billions of dollars of needs across the county. And so we've spent 2 years creating this multi-year improvement plan for all schools. We engaged tens of thousands of residents through surveys and focus groups to try to build out that equitable approach. And we're getting there. And we announced, as part of that Scotts Branch announcement today, $70 million of additional resources on top of what's been invested, moving the ball further and raising the bar. But it's gone slower than I wanted. And then I guess the last thing is when I came into office, we also inherited an $81 million deficit. And that deficit was actually hidden on page 93 of the budget book, footnote number 3. And I had to go, and that was basically our first town hall. It was like, surprise, you all inherited, along with me, this massive deficit that was hidden. And the footnote basically said, failure to raise revenue will result in significant service cuts. And they had projected a 10-cent property tax increase into the budget for the following year. And so we had to go to work. We had to tell the story. We listened to people. People wanted more schools. They wanted more open space. They wanted more road resurfacing. They wanted bulk trash pickup, which we finally brought back after 30 years. Whitney Houston was topping the charts with I Will Always Love You the last time we had bulk trash.
Wow.
But that's back. Little nugget there.
Boom, I like that one.
But we were able to bring Republicans and Democrats together to say, okay, let's cut tens of millions of dollars of inefficient spending. Let's find the resources to close the gap and to also make the investments that we need collectively together. And so it wasn't, most of this has been unexpected challenges, right? When it's a little easier to plan for and work through. But I think it just goes back to process and relationships as to how you can really get things done. And I think whether it was COVID or school construction or tackling comprehensively in a bipartisan fashion our deficit, I think it speaks to those things matter.
Okay, I like that. So, you come to election year, and it's very exciting. What things do you've put out there that you want to see going forward? That you're really like, all right, you're touting this, but things you can see going next 4 years. What things?
Yeah, I mean, it's incumbent on me to tell the story of. First of all, everybody, we promised we would make ourselves more transparent, and we have. We promised that we would invest more in open space and the environment, make it a priority, and we have. We promised we would make schools a priority, and we have. Even as we've done all that, we've tackled this health crisis, and that we haven't entirely lost. We're largely actually stayed completely focused on those things, even as we've tackled COVID. So not only hopefully people recognize that we've built this strong foundation, but as we look forward to say, I trust that you are the person who's going to deliver on that promises on school construction. I trust that you're the person who's going to build that equitable recovery and thinking about communities, especially that have been left behind in the past. And one of the things we announced it's east side, west side of the county. We are using some of our recovery funds to create a community development organization for Randallstown to focus specifically day in and day out about cultivating the business community and corridor there. We put forward $3 million to specifically wrap around the community of Essex, which has seen a higher share of crime numbers, candidly, right? So how can we put wraparound services, rec, jobs, streetscapes to see if we can make a difference by making those investments? So I'm really proud of what we've done. I tell people we're just getting started. It scares my staff sometimes. We mentioned Abby at the top. She helped bring the BMW championship to Baltimore, which had tens of thousands of people every day in Owings Mills. And so, no challenge, but we're going to have to replicate that and top that there too. So I'm just so proud of the team we've assembled. It's the most diverse, talented, and capable team I've ever sort of seen out there. And so I'm just fortunate to watch them go and do. And so if nothing else, I hope voters also recognize that reelecting me isn't just, you get more of Johnny O talking to you, but you get this incredible team who's delivered day in and day out for the residents of Baltimore County.
Now, I would have definitely got to bring this up. What is Baltimore County's relationship with Baltimore City? Mm-hmm. I have a lot of listeners from Baltimore City, so they kind of want to know what's the relationship with Mayor Brandon Scott, or anything that you guys are working on together. Mm-hmm. That's a coalition. Anything you can say?
Mayor and I talk and text regularly. We were texting and actually called him this morning. I mentioned we had Coco's the other week. Look, the strength of Baltimore is the strength of Baltimore County and vice versa. If the city is strong, the county is going to be stronger. If the county is strong, the city is going to be stronger. And so I'm a firm believer in this region. There are incredible assets that residents of Baltimore County experience and enjoy, whether it's the Orioles and the Ravens or the art installations or any of our performing arts institutions. We've got some great amenities in Baltimore County, from our golf courses to our universities and hospitals. I mean, we all benefit from the strength of each other. And so the mayor and I have already done things like this. It sort of speaks to like how far we have yet to go, but that we're moving. Early on, we started having our snow plows that used to go to the end of a street, hit the city-county line, and then turn around, right? So, like, it's little things like that, which has changed, but it's also big things like, okay, what are we doing to share data and think about economic development together? Mm-hmm. What can we do to drive public safety improvements together? What can we do on transportation? So like this legislation, Delegate Tony Bridges has a piece of legislation to think about what the path forward should be for regional transportation. Because, even for me, if someone's living in Woodlawn or Windsor Mill and wants to get to Trade Point Atlantic in eastern Baltimore County, where there are now thousands and thousands and thousands of good jobs, there's a city in between. And so like for opportunity both for my residents and also for the city. I mean, and that installation over at Trade Point, it needs qualified workers to thrive. And so in some way, we have to remember that we really are dependent on and impacted by each other. And that's something that we try to embody in how we govern.
Well, I appreciate you coming to Baltimore City, hanging out with us a little bit. Northeast Baltimore, my home, This is where I hang out. And I'm going to do a little quick speed around. This is always the fun part. This is the fun part. We already did all the hard part, but it's a fun part of the show, I always do. So, crabs or crab cakes?
Crabs.
I like that. Yeah, you like to get your hands dirty.
Gotta get a little dirty sometimes.
And you know what I like about crabs? When people are eating crabs, they're on their phone. You're talking.
You're actually having
conversation.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a cool conversation. You don't want to get your phone crabby.
Probably have an extra beer or two though, because it's a little salty. But...
Right. And it's great. It's great. Maybe everybody do a podcast at a crab. Everybody eating crabs talking. That'd be kind of fun. Snowballs or ice cream?
Ice cream.
That's
an unpopular opinion in Baltimore. I know. I'm not my daughter, my wife loves snowballs. It's not my thing.
All right,
maybe with some marshmallow on top.
Okay, we can do that. All right. For chicken wings, flats or drums?
Drums.
Blue cheese or ranch?
Blue cheese.
Okay. All right. What is the best advice you've ever received?
And it's relationships matter, and it goes to what we've been talking about all day, right? Like that, they really matter.
And what do you want people to walk away when they listen to this episode? What do you want them to take away from this episode you and I was hanging out? Because I want to do a part 2. I want to do a part 2 with this, but later in the year. Go ahead.
I want people to know that I care about them, and that if I can be there for somebody, if I can make somebody's life a little bit better, I want to do that. And so especially if you're a resident of Baltimore County, but even if you're not, let the folks around me know what and how we can help make your life better.
One more question: fireworks, 4th of July?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, that's a lot.
Absolutely.
All right, people are going to probably ask me that question. Fireworks. Thank you, Baltimore County Executive.
Thank you.
So,
Pleasure
for coming in. Love, peace, and